To fur or not to fur? That is the question. Now, let's start off with a little fashion show, shall we? So, each of the items that you just saw were made from faux fur, and so most people care at least a little bit about how things in the world are made and the effects that they can have on the environment. So we're going to dive a little bit into why you should care about fur as a material just a little bit more. So natural fur really is the best option, and we really need to stop buying synthetic fur items. I've spent several hours researching on the effects and properties of both natural and artificial furs, as well as having hands-on experience with both types, both as a sewist and spending time with my grandfather, who was a fur harvester for many years. We found the biggest part of the problem is that synthetic furs and their fibers are polluting waterways and the environment as a whole. We can solve this through simple actions. If we choose to only purchase natural furs, we could have a much healthier planet. So let's scale forward into the proof that this is a serious problem. So synthetics by nature are one of the most unnatural things in the world. It's right in the names of that synthetic fur is given. Faux, for example, is French for false, and or the word synthetic itself. It means placed together. Even take imitation, which means to copy or to portray, which means by their own descriptions, furs are a material made from chemicals being placed together to create a false version, a copy of a natural material. So that comes from the Oxford English Dictionary. When these synthetic and thereby unnatural materials make their way into our natural and fragile environment from being discarded or during production, our environment becomes polluted. With the polluted environment, our cultures will too soon be poisoned and polluted with the afterwash of synthetics. When mass-produced synthetics are discarded, they release microplastics, like the ones you see here on the screen, and they don't biodegrade. So, somebody might ask, how does this impact my life? While it may not affect you personally, the indigenous culture of the world, as well as others in the world, have deep roots in the fur trapping and use industry. For them, it's one of the best ways for them to, as quote, retain their culture better than any other way of life. They use furs for traditional garb and other items, thereby working to uphold their deeply seated cultural traditions. Some people might say that it isn't really a problem. I believe they're wrong, and the reason I say that is because microplastics from the synthetic fur materials pose a hazard to the wildlife and the people of the planet, as do the chemicals involved with its production. This means that if synthetic materials are continually used in fur and other textiles, it can endanger the well-being of our populations. So here's the solution. We push for change back to using exclusively natural furs in production of fashion and luxury items. And with natural furs, the production size is smaller. So the material would be more expensive, but when somebody decides to throw it away, it will simply biodegrade, like the apple you see, and it'll return to the environment. It'll be a material worth the money paid for it, and it'll be much safer for the environment that it's being left in. Now, some people might say this won't work. I say they're wrong. Furs are natural materials, as I said before, made up of biologically produced compounds, not ones made in a lab after being extracted from fossil fuels like gas or oil. Materials such as keratin and collagen are what make up most of the skin and hair that makes up fur. It's also found in humans as well, and we, as bad as it sounds, we rot after we die. So the same process would happen with the furs, because that comes from animals too. And this would happen in right about a year if the conditions are about right. And as I said before, this doesn't happen with synthetic fur materials. They don't biodegrade. They don't break down. They shed little bits and pieces. They shed the microplastics that I mentioned before. into the environment. Now, if we don't improve our environment by buying only natural fur, fur will continue to have a bad reputation, and synthetic furs will continue to pollute the waterways and the rest of the environment. Animals, like the sweet little pupper we see here, will become ill, and the environment will become ill itself. If we move back to natural resources, back to the old way of fur, where the indigenous cultures, as mentioned before, have been doing it for thousands of years to obtain our fur, there will be much less plastic pollution in our environment, making it healthier for the animals, for the plants, and the people that live in it. Now, closing out, natural fur is the best option, and we really do need to stop buying synthetic fur items. We have found that the biggest part of the problem is that synthetic furs are polluting the natural waterways and the environment as a whole. We can solve this through simple actions. If we choose to only purchase natural furs, we could have a much healthier planet. Now get out there, make things better for our future people and the environment. Only buy natural fur and stop buying faux. Furs are a natural and particularly beautiful gift of nature. They are an important natural resource to be used wisely and with respect. So when you think about buying that coat made with synthetic fur, think again. Go natural.